Peace. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you back to another edition of the Foul Playland. As always, I am Sir Foul Player of Brooklyn on my new venture, Behold. As always, I am. Oh shit. My apologies. Let me mute my other. Just making sure my audio is working. There we go, beautiful people. Thank you for coming through. My name is Sir Foul Player of Brooklyn, and I've been doing YouTube for quite some time. A lot of it was more of a mishmash, sports, mostly boxing, um, entertainment stuff. And in the last couple of years, not that I've become politicized, but I have chosen to talk more about domestic issues and political issues, world news, whatever have you. I mean, there's a personally, I feel that this is a really distinctive time in the whole world. I mean, if you guys could think back to a few months ago, I mean, even though it was a couple years ago, but about 48 months ago, we were all locked down in our houses. And I think I've been doing YouTube even before that period. Yeah, I actually have been doing YouTube before the lockdown. And it seems as if life has changed so much, even from that period till now, like 2020 till this time that we're in now in 2025. And why not document it all? I mean, like, I think that during that time frame, even prior to that, but especially now that we've reached 2025, hopefully intact, I hope that everybody is holding themselves up wonderfully and not doing bad. But since that time frame, I witnessed to the fact that the media has died. I mean, nobody listens to the news anymore. Um, People barely watch TV anymore. And I think even though some people may hear things that they like on TV politically, I mean, like, especially if you're a liberal, like, I mean, if you're a liberal, you're going to hear a lot of things that you may find agreeable, but not true necessarily. Like, you may, in the past couple of years, find the fact that um, on the liberal media, which is probably most of the media, you're going to hear a bunch of stuff that is anti Trump. So you may, even though you don't believe it, even though you may not watch it necessarily, because a lot of people are not watching the regular news, and especially at the frequency that they were before, pre 2020. But generally, I mean, I think overall people are just tuning out of it altogether. And I say that to say that YouTube is the illest platform because it's just regular people like me speaking what they feel. Whether you think that's wrong, right, racisms, that's on you. I mean, but I think I come onto YouTube to listen to people that I don't agree with more than I do like people that I do agree with. Most of the people that I agree with probably got kicked off of the platform in around 2022. And I mean, as just a side note, a lot of people that were booted in that time period when YouTube started getting really crazy, or not crazy, but a little bit more interesting. Or I honestly, it was around the time period that I was finding channels that were more pro, like conservative. Um, Funnily enough, like in the last like month or so, 2 months or so, a lot of those channels are now coming back, which is good to see. But um, that's, I mean, in spite of that, I mean, like, and in spite of the fact that a channel like mine will get throttled because the last thing that YouTube wants to hear is a quote unquote minority um, who has what they deem a conservative perspective. Even though I'm not like a classical conservative, I was probably more liberal like than anything in the late 90s, if you will, even in the early 2000s. I mean, I wanted Obama to win the presidency when he first ran. I mean, I wasn't that in tune. I now think that Obama was probably one of the worst presidents of my lifetime, second after Bush, second after Biden. My mistake. I don't know why this butter knife is on this table, but um, YouTube does a lot to try to throttle channels and like I said earlier, a lot of channels that I was listening to probably in the lead up to the 2020 election, and then right after the 2020 election, a lot of those channels were getting they got booted off the platform. I don't want to mention them by name because I think that was, I'm sorry. I don't want to mention many channels by name because I don't want to be a victim of YouTube kind of trying to play your boy even more. I'm stuck proverbially at the same amount of subscribers, regardless of what happens. It's always 519 to 520, like in perpetuity. But I'm not crying about it either. I mean, I think YouTube does themselves a disservice by removing what they may consider by 2025 standards conservative perspective, which is basically, I mean, if you're not like deriding Obama, if you're not like totally nuts about a Kamala presidency, or if you disagreed with some of the moves that Joe Biden was making while he was the president, then by 2025 standards, again, I mean, you may be considered some sort of a right-wing lunatic of some sort. I mean, and it's not like nothing that I'm assuming. At times on this platform, I'll go on to other channels and I'm treated as such. I mean, I'm almost looked at as a sellout to my race, Puerto Rican of New York City, or you name it. I mean, I don't want to, again, not doing this for these attitudes to necessarily change. I mean, I rather that people show how they feel than to put up a front. And I gotta really do the same myself. I want to be more critical of the things that I see around me on a day to day, particularly as it pertains to so-called minorities like myself, or my community. Which again, I mean, when I say my community, these are what you may consider so-called Puerto Ricans. I'm not gonna say Latinos because I don't really vibe on a day-to-day level with or I not that I don't vibe. I consider Mexican Americans far more different than Puerto Rican Americans and Dominican Americans. And I'm speaking from a New York City perspective. In New York City, I mean, Mexican cats, I mean, nothing against them. I mean, but they seem to be kind of on different time than so-called Black people, so-called Puerto Ricans, so-called Dominicans. And those three nationalities that I just mentioned, you could even include Caribbeans, whether that be from Jamaica, Trinidad, Panama. We tend to more in my experience. I mean, especially growing up, even now, we tend to be more of live under the same set of circumstances, and you'll have let's say a Mexican New Yorker that is treated differently by all those groups that I just mentioned, and is also treated differently by those groups that I just mentioned, if that makes any sense. Having said that, though, at times I felt that I didn't want to comment on the group which I belong to, I guess, so-called minority from New York, because there's always some pearl clutching that's done, or some moron that's just going to give a dumb reaction to it. But I mean, it's 2025, and why flow in that capacity now? I mean, I, for one, also am of the conclusion that the world as we know it is falling apart. Um, it's nothing that scares me. I actually look at the world falling apart as almost as a good thing. Sorry, just making sure that my because I'm using StreamYard, and I'm using StreamYard for the purpose of holding a open panel or open debate. I want I'm here for the I'm with the shits today. I mean, like, but of course, here I am with the shits, totally in tune, and a lot of the people that normally um you would expect to show up, and chat overlay is not available in the free pan. No, I'm reading what the StreamYard says. Well, the free plan is what I'm operating with StreamYard, so without that, no chat overlay. But I'm holding this. I going back to what I was saying though, I do want to be more candid about the conditions in which my so-called people live in, and it's and I'm not gonna I've subscribed to the notion of being one of the people that may sort of cry about the conditions that we were put in. But I mean, I'm in my 40s now. I don't really have much to riff about in my latter years of my life, or I hope is the last 2/3 of my life. I hope to live to 120. But I could also see how our people, in many instances, are our own worst enemy. In most instances, I'll say 100% of the instances, our people are the biggest negative thinkers. You know, our people probably historically have been the ones that have screwed ourselves throughout the history of this country. Or our history in America. I mean, like, we've been our biggest opposition, we've been our biggest deterrent. And I tell you this now more candidly in 2020. I mean, more than ever in 2025. I mean, like, you say, as a so-called minority like myself, like, that you want to get up to doing something, and the biggest people who will be your detractors are usually other so-called minorities. Let me make sure my volume's up. Usually other so-called minorities. Yeah, it is up. And a lot of times it's the so-called minorities within your very family. I mean, like, but a lot of times these conversations on what to do next as far as a people, whether that be within the Puerto Rican community, the Black community, the Dominican community, when they get to these dilemmas in which they have these come to God moments and think, what should we do next, or what should we do as a people? It's always the same circular conversations. Oh, we should start building our own schools. Oh, we should only buy, from our own people. And none of that stuff ever gets done. I mean, like, will usually ravel or take glee in the conversation as who we could blame. Like, for instance, like, I am a big subscriber before to the so-called conscious community. I mean, and I'm talking about way before, like in the 2000, when it wasn't really popular. There was a lot of great thoughts that were coming out of that community. Whereas now, I mean, you mentioned like the so-called conscious community, and like a lot of people, I'll just say it outright, so-called Black people will be like, oh, Umar Johnson, like, but they'll mention him in a negative connotation, like, oh, wasn't he supposed to build that school? And I'm not here to defend Umar Johnson. I don't have much of a good opinion on the man like that, like, or nobody in the conscious community, with the exception of a small few group of people. But they'll, rather than say, like, when they'll say, oh, we got to build our own schools, like, the conversation will turn into like, oh, well, Umar Johnson, like, had the chance to screw up, build that school, and we always do bad. Like we like it's almost like they'll like metastasize like how bad will eventually be. It's not like, oh well, we got to get to doing something right now. It's usually like, oh well, we had a chance to do something and we screwed it up. And that's really not the case. I mean, like I'm subscribing to the notion that's like in 2025 that, at times, like within the so-called minority community, we do have people that are double agents, if you will, or people that intend to keep us in the same position. And I'm not like saying that that's more on the individual. Like I say that's just always what happens, and it's not even coincidence at this point at times. Like, and no, I don't subscribe to the notion that our people are pre-genetically disposed to screw themselves over, like entirely. I think that the culture that we've perpetuated upon ourselves as so-called minorities keeps us in this crappy position, and that's why I say so-called Puerto Ricans or so-called Black or so-called, because these titles in themselves, I think, are part of the problem too. Like the fact that we refer to ourselves by these real limited titles or this descriptions. That's a lot. I mean, but that's more of a message for my so-called minority community, which I wish a lot of them would show up to these panels. Because I mean, when I show up to their panels, they have a lot of real rancor for your friend Sir Foul Player of Brooklyn, who speaks to you right now. But maybe they got other things going on a Friday evening, which can't blame them. But now that I got that out of the way, though, I mean, and I'm saying that more as an aside, like, what I want to happen on my channel in the future. Just making sure that my chat is working. I'm just going to write something in my own chat to see if it, there we go. Okay, it's working. Well, let me talk about the topic at hand, which is the SNAPocalypse, like which is, if you guys don't know, the government in America has been shut down for, I think, I don't know how many days, 30 something. But with that, the welfare programs, namely SNAP, is shut down, and that's caused the ability for people who receive public assistance every month to not receive it any longer. SNAP is a program which some people considered food stamps in the past, but they now call it SNAP. It's a debit card which basically gives you money to buy groceries. And right now, the government, since it's shut down, is not funding that program, and is also not funding the salaries of government employees. Now, I don't revel in the fact that neither one of these things is happening. I rather that government employees be paid, in addition to the fact that I rather people who receive public assistance for food, especially, receive that public assistance as well. But this is more of a conversation as to who's responsible for the government being shut down. I mean, and I really would rather not get into the minutia explaining these things as to what it would take. I mean, but since there's nobody here and there's nobody really to debate against, I will say that the government is normally financed by, in the last 13 sessions of Congress under the Joe Biden administration and once under the Trump administration, they're usually financed by a continued resolution, from my understanding. And that's basically a bunch of money that gets allocated from the government to just keep the government up and running for a couple of months. I think it's like 4 months. And under the Joe Biden presidency, the Republicans, who were the minority, always agreed with the continued resolution, in spite of the fact that a lot of bad stuff was happening under the Joe Biden presidency. And when I say bad stuff, I say bad stuff particularly from a conservative perspective, which a lot of these Republicans are so-called conservatives, but they were cool with not shutting the government down for while all the while seeing, migrants spill into America at a rate that we've never had in the history of this country. For all intents and purposes, if you don't know, there was no border under the Joe Biden presidency. But when it came down to keeping the government open, I mean, I didn't see many Republicans holding out and saying, no, we're not cool with one more day of, an open border. So until you close the border, we're not going to give you a clean continuing resolution. That's one thing. And it's not like the open border was the only problem that I saw with the Joe Biden presidency. It was also the fact that there was a lot of continued pressure from the executive branch or the Joe Biden White House to do things that were unpopular, like the forcing mandates or censoring private platforms like the one that I'm on right now, Facebook, and a lot of this stuff was happening under the Joe Biden presidency, which was, from my belief, a encroachment on the freedom of speech. Nevertheless, I mean, although that stuff was out and happening under the Joe Biden presidency, I didn't see a lot of blowback from the Republicans in Congress. I didn't see them saying, we're not going to put up with this kind of crap. This thing's bugging me. We're not going to put up with this kind of crap, and we're going to shut down the government because of it's mostly people who are so-called conservatives being censored or being arrested in some cases. There were a lot of political cases that happened under the Joe Biden presidency. And, that I think would have been a valid reason, I mean, according to politics, for some of the Republican senators during the Joe Biden presidency to shut down the government then, or not sign on to a clean resolution. Yet they didn't. I mean, like, they kept the government open in spite of things that were contrary to what I believe would be conservative talking points, if you will, or things that conservatives would agree with. But now in the last iteration, or the latest iteration of the Democrat shutdown, as Trump calls it, you have pretty much every Republican except for one agreeing with a continued resolution, but you have pretty much no Democrats. And I think that's like 52 senators, but you have 0 Democrats that are signing on to agree to keep the government open. Yet with all that, I mean, you see a lot of people that will blame this shutdown on the current president or on the Republicans as a whole. And I mean, I think that we were seeing that in the last presidency as well. Like, I mean, like, even under the Joe Biden presidency, when the libshits or got to actually admitting to the fact that there was a problem at the border. And I've put the link out. It's the StreamYard link under my last comment. if anybody wants to come onto the panel, you're more than welcome. But when it came time to where the Democrats and the mainstream media actually started admitting that the border was wide open, and this came late into a Biden presidency. If you guys remember, like that stuff started happening in probably late 2023, early 2024, where they actually started saying that the border had a lot of people running through it with no opposition, nobody stopping them. But when it came time to addressing whether that border should be closed or not, the same thing happened as is happening now, where the Republicans got a lot of the blame. You know, they were saying that the Republicans should sign on to Joe Biden's border bill, which pretty much kept the border open anyway. I mean, it allowed for up to 9,000 illegal, unvetted migrants to enter into America, or more per day. You know, so I mean, in addition to financing a bunch of BS that the Democrats want to push through. So politically, I mean, like, and I noticed this since I was a kid. I've watched politics since I was young. It always seems as if there's a caving in done by conservatives or by Republicans, and this time around, I mean, like, even though the Republicans have now agreed to on a continued resolution, which benefits Republicans, the one caveat is that they don't want to have money going towards Obamacare, which Obamacare is terrible. Obamacare is one of the worst things that ever happened in my personal life. You know, having to pay for something that I didn't want to pay for. You know, I already had health coverage, and it seemed like they were forcing me, at least for 1 year, to buy worse health coverage for more money. I mean, it never happened in this country where you were forced into buying something, and the Republicans caved in when that came around under the Obama administration. And I just started really clicking at that point that the Republicans were just paid opposition, you know, pussies, if you will. They are there like to, you know, kind of like put up a decent fight and then just cave in at the last minute. But now the one different factor in all this is that you have a man with humongous balls in Donald Trump, who's currently the president. And that's whether you like him or hate him. I mean, Donald Trump is a force to be reckoned with. And he's now talking about ending the filibuster, you know, and that's basically gives him the authority to push a lot of his appointments through without, and a lot of the bills that he wants to put forward without there being these long-winded debates at the congressional level and in the Senate. And not sure whether I agree with it or not. I'm more of the party of agreeing with it because I think that massive change needs to come to America. And if I depend on the current Republican Party, that change ain't gonna come. I mean, like I said, like they're there to put up a decent fight and eventually lose, where Donald Trump just doesn't seem like he's in the business of trying to lose. Donald Trump is in the business of, if you don't like it, eat shit. I mean, and that's kind of what's necessary at this point. I mean, you know, the fact that up to 30 million illegal immigrants entered into America at a time when, you know, a lot of other countries are trying to jockey for position, whether that be Russia, China. You know, we have what could be enemy combatants in America as we speak if things were to get hairy. I mean, like, you know, I, for one, would like for a lot of these people to be shipped out of here. And I'm coming from the perspective of somebody whose family still lives in New York City. I'm 10 miles from New York City in the suburbs of New Jersey. I could see New York City from my house. The fact that New York City has received more migrants has led to a bunch of migrants coming into my little hamlet or where I live currently. And it's nothing that oh, another migrant, well, fantastic. They're going to be picking fruit. Like, it's always when you talk to liberals and you talk to them about um, illegal immigration, they always go back to the same shit. Well, who's going to pick our fruit? Like, and like going back to my critiques of the so-called minority communities. They'll say, oh, well, our people ain't gonna do those jobs, and it's always like a real shitting on the so-called minorities of America one way or another, like whether that be liberals doing it or that be so-called minorities shooting themselves in the foot. The conversation will always somehow end up where it's shitting on true-born Americans, and so-called minorities are probably the longest tenured generational Americans in America as we speak. And unfortunately, so-called minorities are the biggest groups of people that try to distance themselves from being Americans, and that has to change. I'm American through and through in the sense that I am of this nation. I'm not going to say I'm patriotic in the Coors Light drinking sense or like, blowing shit up on 4th of July. But if I think of a land that I think belongs to me, or if I think of a land that I want to flourish in, or think of a land that I want to flourish, I don't think of Puerto Rico first. I mean, like, and I don't want Puerto Rico to do bad. And I'm very proud of being Puerto Rican. I want America to do well. I live in America. I'm not going to go live in Puerto Rico unless like some crazy shit happens or I want to take advantage of some sort of monetary benefit. But I want America to do well. And America doing well makes it so that the whole world does well. And I think that that's the case for a long time. I think that America's history is very ancient, even though this is a very different conversation. But I think America is far older than people give it credit for. And I think America is the most important land, bar none. America has the capability of feeding the whole world with just a small portion of America. The Midwest and California could probably feed the whole world. Yet, you have rich oligarchs that try to make it so that we look for fake sources of food like Bill Gates and creating fake meat, where we have enough food to feed the world over. I mean, and definitely have enough food to keep America's extremely well fed. Yet we have fake food like Pop-Tarts or shitty ass cereal or things that are made strictly with corn. We have, but that's a different conversation. But again, I mean, like if America falls apart, like a lot of shit liberals and a lot of, malcontents, many malcontents, even in the minority community, I'm not going to front, like they'll like talk about America falling apart and doing bad or fuck America, but not counting the fact that their ancestors are from here. Like, I mean, my ancestors, I mean, my mom was the only, like, I was the first one born here, but I'm from Puerto Rico. I mean, Puerto Rico is a few miles from America. I mean, and right now, Puerto Rico lives off America. And I think even in ancient times, there were people that were living off America, thousands of years ago, probably. There were people in Puerto Rico that were probably coming up to Florida and vice versa. These people had the wherewithal to build buildings and to have technology that probably matched with Europe technology at that time. And I'm pretty sure that my ancestors from Puerto Rico would probably frown at the notion of this great nation that I live in currently falling apart. And we're at a precipice right now. I think we're living in. I subscribe to the notion that these are the worst times in history, or it's either the beginning of some of the worst times in history. And yet, my blood still flows. I have a choice as to whether I want these times to continue to be worse, or whether I talk to me and minds as best as I could and let them know, like, these are the pitfalls of what's happening right now, currently. And racism isn't the biggest pitfall that's happening right now. Anybody who will tell you that, especially from the so-called minority community, is fronting. We don't face racism every single day. Like, I mean, like, and if you do, I mean, based on skin color, I mean, like, I don't think that's something that happens every waking moment, like a lot of times, and I go to the hoodest of hoods currently, and racism isn't the biggest problem happening to the hoodest of hood. If you want to rationalize it and, twist your mind into some sort of proverbial knot to make it seem as if some white people that you never see in your regular life, I mean, because if you're in the hood, you don't see white people at all. Like, not even the cops are straight up white. A lot of those cops that are in these departments, they don't want to go to the hood with good reason. I don't want to go to the hood either. But they usually send lower ranking people, i.e. most times people that are from the hood, into these areas. So, I mean, in 2025, what I'm trying to say is that we're barely even being policed by other so-called minorities. And I'll be very candid about that. Mind you, I used to be one of these people that would riff about the fact that white Long Islanders were really heavy in the NYPD, and that we had white people policing so-called Puerto Ricans and so-called black people in the area in which I live. But at this stage of the game, I mean, like, I think the bigger problem, if you want to name white people as a problem for so-called minorities, it's definitely liberal white people and white people that are from Middle Eastern nations, if anything. But we get caught up in trying to look for racism, or trying to find the reason for people to be racist, that we don't see the forest for the trees, I guess. But seems like this is a little bit too deep of a conversation for people to pull up. YouTube has done me dirty again, but I'll just keep going on a tangent. Hopefully somebody has the wherewithal to drop by and contend the notion that we're currently within a Democrat shutdown and not a Republican shutdown. Let me get a bottle of water. And I hope you guys could see my wonderful art collection. I mean, which I think is the shit. But I've worked very hard to acquire this art collection. These that you see behind here are by a graffiti artist by the name of Nox, Nox, or Noxer. If you guys could follow him on Instagram, his Instagram page is Decades of Dedication, or Noxer. You could look it up either way. But I worked really hard to try to amass this little collection of faces that are behind me. I think they're the shit. I mean, I think he's extremely talented. I have on the other side of is all of my dining room. These are two artists. The bottom one is by a artist called Optimal or Words, my brother, and he's actually one of the illest graffiti artists in New York. Also, that was a collaboration he did with an artist called Blanco. I am Blanco on Instagram. The other artist on the top is a other really talented artist called Whom, Howhom, Dr. Whom. I think he's really nasty work. That actually spells out his name. Let me see. That's I got a lot of artists there. One by Giz MTA. Another one from Ghost, and again my main brother Optimo. That's the Ghost piece, and that's the Optimo piece. Very nice. Another one by Noxer. I just started amassing this collection. This is by another ill artist, MQ and Roach, one of the cats from my neighborhood. And this is actually a neighborhood sign from my hometown, Sunset Park, with a great collective from Sunset Park. They actually autographed my sign. That's if you look on the news in New York, you'll see a lot of these signs of Gak graffiti art kings, and they actually are from my neighborhood and were nice enough to sign my Sunset Park sign, which I acquired through legal means, of course. That's actually another art piece from the Graffiti Art Kings collective. See, and like it's a lot of these little signs that they look like corporate signs. Like this one looks like a Heineken sign by KE. That's they make signs, stickers that look like corporate stuff, and they put it all over New York. But if you look at New York news, you'll often see this one especially, like all over the place, and that's by this individual here, really talented brothers, and they're from my hometown, Sunset Park. That's also my man Mega, another great artist. But I'm just showing off the art collection because I have no opposition to my points of contention, and I'm actually showing off. I'm very proud of my art collection. I really put a lot of work into acquiring it recently. Oh, actually, let me show my other great piece that I have in my living room. I just got it framed recently. That's another Blanco words piece that I just got framed. I gotta get the other one framed. That's the one I showed earlier. This one. That was a collaboration by two people. That my brother Optimal Words does these characters, and he's actually does like repel graffiti, like graffiti hanging off buildings. And this artist that he does these faces, his name is Blanco. He's from Miami. Enough for showing off. I got a hot loogie like in a major way, but I'm being polite. Actually, let me do it while. Excuse me, my peoples. My battery's running low too, so let me plug that in while I'm standing up. Yeah, I'm surprised that nobody came to, not even to pop shit. You know, and I left the link out. I have 3 people watching me currently. I mean, I guess all of them. Damn, I think my charger got unplugged. Is this thing charging? Damn, don't tell me this charger's broken too now. Hold on, my people. Let me try to fix my battery situation. And again, if anybody wants to utilize the the StreamYard app, I left it. It's the last comment. Yeah, my charger's not working. What the hell? Oh, there we go. If anybody wants to use the join my panel and utilize the StreamYard app, It's the last question. It's the last comment that I left. Again, if you want a topic to debate upon, it's the fact that I feel that the Democrats are at fault for closing the government down. We're in day 30 something of the SNAPocalypse. Many people are not able to utilize food stamps. I also hold the notion, if you want a other point of contention that will make me look like a bad person, I actually want the government to stay shut down in many instances. Again, and I want the government to stay shut down because when it comes to a real immigration effort or deportation effort, I think that one of my complaints with this administration, which I agree with a lot of what's happened in this administration, or many of the moves that Trump has made, not all of them, but many. But one of my principal complaints, and again, coming from the perspective of a New Yorker who still lives really close to New York and still has family in New York, like I said earlier, but that they haven't deported enough people. I want a lot of these people out of here, and that's not me being a mean or anti-migrants. I think we have way more people than we need in America as is. And you could see that with the prices of houses, if there wasn't a need to house people, the prices of homes would go down, but I want a chance for young Americans to have the dream of home ownership and not competing against immigrants, which we have far too many in this country. And that's of all nationalities. I don't discriminate with who I want deported. I want as many men deported first as soon as possible. And I say men with the intention of some chicks could stay behind and hopefully become impregnated by, some American dude that may need to find himself a lady who wants to behave like a lady and not be some, domineering, like liberal unt. But most of these dudes, which I've seen in New York City, particularly, how a lot of the people that have come in are mostly dudes. It's just straight dudes. And it's the same thing in Europe too. I actually lived in Europe in the early 2000s, and you had the same problem there. Especially in France, like when I went to visit Paris, France, that was straight up African dudes and Arabic dudes. No women on the street at all. Like zero. I never went to a place up until I went to Paris, France, of all places, too, a thriving city where there were no women outside. And that's because these dudes that they bring into these countries are thirsty as all hell. They have habits that they're used to in their countries of how they treat women. Also, when I went to Paris, France, a lot of these dudes are doing the same thing that they're doing in New York City under the Biden administration. They're just there doing nothing, drinking out in the open all day. Again, and it doesn't seem like they're sending doctors and engineers over. A lot of these dudes are with the shits. They're like violent. They're not. They don't consider themselves American. And they have a little bit of a rancor or a feeling of opposing of the country that they've been allowed to enter into by stupid politicians, namely Joe Biden and the Kamala Harris administration. But it just seems like there's more men that were making that voyage. And if you think of, having to come from another country into America, it's not a voyage that a lot of women would probably take up. It's something that requires a lot of physical effort at the minimum. And a lot of the people that entered, especially in New York City, were men. And I was actively watching a lot of people that made content of things that were happening at the border. Um, there's a good guy on Twitter called Oscar L Blue, Oscar EL, and then the word blue, like Crips Blue. He was making a lot of content, um, and he actually made the border crossing himself. I mean, a lot of the content that he showed was brutal. I mean, you're talking about people making that passage from Southern America into Panama and in the jungles of Panama, and there were corpses all throughout that passage, and this was all being done by these real shady cartel operatives and bringing people into the United States. I mean, and thankfully, the Trump administration has deemed the Mexican cartels as terrorist organizations, along with Antifa. And I agree that both of them are terrorist organizations. And it took for somebody, like I said, the bull in the china shop, Trump, the one caveat in political conversations, the one difference maker, um, to really give special attention to these issues that I think are pervading America. Um, and I'm glad, at the very minimum that he's noticed. I mean, it seems like, or it seems as if, the American population is doing a good job at trying not to notice these things as they're happening. And politicians, whether that be liberal that cover up for these mass migrations that are happening or that have happened in the past, or Republicans who are there to lose to liberals at every turn, um, it takes somebody with balls or with some I don't give a shit attitude like Trump to kind of at least give this issue a little bit of light. And again, I mean, you may live in some suburb far away from New York City where migrants don't enter, where immigrants didn't spill into. But a lot of my time I either spend in New York City, in the suburbs of Jersey, where I live now, and I also spend a lot of my time in the vacation land, Maine. And unfortunately, Maine is also going through a mass migration problem. And it's because you have gullible liberal white people that allowed that to happen. I think that the tenor of talking politics in the last 10 years, especially, post George Floyd era, you have a lot of people that feel guilty, I guess, for feeling a certain way or for noticing certain things. And unfortunately, Maine has a lot of that. You probably have the whitest population in America in Maine. And they allowed what I see in Maine are a lot of Chinese immigrants and Somalian immigrants or African immigrants. Neither one of them are a benefit to Maine. I mean, I think that they're both hurting. Their presence in Maine is hurting Maine. Only a liberal dipshit would say that these people are contributing anything to Maine or contributing anything to America. And that's not a bigoted conversation. I mean, I think we have enough immigrants than what we need. If you want to go to the picking fruit conversation, I think that there's 30 million immigrants that entered under the Joe Biden administration. And for the purposes of picking crops, I think we only need countrywide less than 4 million people, or 4 million immigrants are employed by that kind of work. So that just goes to show you that we don't even need a percentage of immigrants just for that stupid talking point when the liberal shitheads try to validate immigrants being in the country for pretty much what they consider slave work, which is telling. But again, I mean, like, I can't be too harsh on the Trump administration for not getting enough immigrants out, seeing that we're in the just about to pass the first quarter of a Trump administration. You still have 3 quarters left. I want a lot of people to also politically be prosecuted. I mean, it's good that James Comey and James Clapper is under a little bit of heat right now too. The Letitia Jameses of the world and the Fannie Willises. But make no mistake, I mean, I subscribe to the notion that a lot of these people were working in concert when it came to going after Trump in New York City, when it came to going after political opposition in Georgia, like Fannie Willis did. And that's something that, I don't want to see in this country. And the people that partook in it should be punished, but we should also, more importantly, find out whether they were working in concert with the Joe Biden White House and with other political swamp creatures that are still existing in America. I mean, the swamp creatures haven't gone away, but I want them to go away. And Trump is the man to do that, but I want to see more action in that department. I want to see more political prosecutions that are warranted, but I do want them to be undertaken. And again, I mean, how often do you hear members of Congress and of the Senate in the Republican side complain about the political prosecution that they themselves were under? When you look at the current revelations that were made just this past week, how a lot of these congressmen and senators that were Republicans had their phones tapped by a Joe Biden administration, which was more than happy to conduct political prosecutions. I mean, now they're making speeches that this stuff was happening, but what are they going to do about it? Investigations at best, and I just don't want to see only investigations or fact-finding missions where we just find out that this stuff happened and somebody gets a slap on the wrist somewhere. No, I don't want this stuff to happen forever. I don't want this stuff to happen ever again. And by really taking apart the DC establishment, even if it takes a longer shutdown, I'm with the shits. It's something that I want to see happen. I don't want to hyperventilate about people not receiving food stamps, as unfortunate as that is. I know a lot of people that receive food stamps, and this is a real tough time of the year for government employees not to be paid, or for recipients of food stamps, people that actually deserve it, not these immigrant shitheads that do receive food stamps. I mean, yes, illegal immigrants are receiving food stamps, especially under the Joe Biden administration. How is it that under the Joe Biden administration, the amount of people that receive SNAP benefits ballooned up so much? It wasn't just the economy and a lot of people stopped working. No, it was the fact that a lot of new recipients that entered into the country illegally from other countries started receiving SNAP benefits. Don't listen to liberal idiots try to paint things in a different fashion. When a liberal idiot will tell you that, oh, well, this shutdown is going to affect people's healthcare premiums, I don't care. One. Secondly, if the government has to finance healthcare, which is the case under Obamacare, anything that the government has to prop up or to pay for in order for it to be kept afloat is not something that I want to continue. And that's what Obamacare is. Many of the talking points that are brought up by liberals when it comes to the shutdown, or when it comes to anything, honestly, in 2025, liberals are only good at telling you lies, or half truths. But I think that the government shutdown has kind of brought us to a crux as far as this country goes. It's kind of brought us at a real edge of a tipping point, and I'm here for it. I mean, I almost want it to continue. I definitely don't want the Republicans to cave in and to give $200 billion to illegal immigrants like they want to, or like Senator Schumer and the rest of the far left lunatics in Congress want to give 200 billion to illegal immigrants, and they also want 1.5 trillion of extra money thrown in to finance things like Obamacare. I'd rather Obamacare fall apart and force us to find a better solution to healthcare than to continue the atrocity that has been Obamacare. Nobody will ever tell you that Obamacare has been a good thing. If the prices of premiums have only risen since Obamacare has been implemented, then it doesn't work. If the only way that Obamacare works is by the government paying into it, then it's something that doesn't work. That'd be like meeting abroad and she tells you, oh, like the only way I can get my rent paid is by going to meet up with a sugar daddy. Then, I mean, is that a broad that you would want to build with? Absolutely not. You know, and that's what Obamacare is. Obamacare is basically propped up by the sugar daddy US government, in addition to the fact that these healthcare companies are getting rich and raising their rates because they know that the American taxpayers stuck with the bill. So I'd rather the government be shut down and us have to address these really tough issues, rather than, kick the can down the road and continue with life as is. Um, I put the link out there, but if nobody's gonna come through, I'm gonna be shutting things down. I want to eat dinner, but with that, I'm gonna try to come on to and do these panels more often. Unfortunately, the website that allows me to bring people onto these panels, unless I have a specific invited guest, is StreamYard. But I think they only allocate a certain time or a certain amount of time which I could use it, unless I pay for it, and I'm too cheap to pay for these things. Times are tough. The government shutdown is affecting all of us, me included. I'm not, and even if I were making a lot of money, I'm not going to pay for StreamYard. I'm super cheap. But whenever I'm gonna at least try to do it once a month. If my channel were popping like that and I was making money off YouTube, then I'd have StreamYard all day. But or if I had a ton of people coming through all the time, and looking to jump onto the panel, then maybe I'd make the sacrifice and pay the $20, I think it is, to have StreamYard for a month or for months per month. But my channel ain't popping like that, and or it's not. A lot of times when I put these, when I make things open panel, like people can't like just leave a comment and do their little drive-bys, and try to trip me up, and I have a lot of I guess liberal defenders are cowards when you give them impetus to debate the talking points that they regurgitate at a constant. Let alone, I mean, like, I don't expect people to come through and try to contend against yours truly. Not that I'm some smart guy, but liberals are unprincipled and they can't debate anything that they put out. But without emotion being involved. I mean, liberals are good at one thing. It's acting emotional. But with that, I'm gonna cut the stream. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I'm very likely not gonna come on tomorrow. I'm gonna watch football and I got shit to do. But nevertheless, hold your head about you. These are the toughest times in history that you're living in right now, and things can only get better. And the only way things can get better is that you keep a good head above your shoulders, hold out hope the best as you could, and try to make things better for yourself every day. But with that, I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your weekend. As always, I am Sir Foul Player of Brooklyn. This is Behold. Peace.